This is 1680 The Crow, and you're listening to our feature presentation.
Welcome to For the Record. I'm Jenny Sung. Today we dip our feet into some stories about a woman-run business that specifically helps female entrepreneurs, as well as some interviews regarding the lingering effects from the Lapu-Lapu incident that happened 2 weeks ago. The recent tragedy of the Lapu-Lapu Festival is raising concerns regarding safety and security of future events. Kai Garcia spoke to a counselor from the city of Burnaby about the upcoming Pinoy Festival, which is a Filipino festival taking place next month. Following that, Patrick McConnell spoke to a mental illness society group about calls about involuntary care increasing after the tragedy of Lapu-Lapu. But first up, data from Stats Canada shows less than half of brands in British Columbia were run by women in the first quarter of this year. One company is rewriting the rules of business. SheBiz is a female-run organization with a mission to support and empower women entrepreneurs. I sat down with founder Kunwal Trahan to discuss what struggles female entrepreneurs face and how to increase the amount of women leadership roles in business. We begin our conversation with Kunwal telling me what inspired her to start SheBiz and her personal experiences leading up to today.
Terry, thanks for sitting with me. Do you mind first just introducing yourself and letting me know what your position is at BCIT?
Sure. So my name's Terry. I'm an interpreter here. I contract through Still Interpreting. Still Interpreting is an agency that provides ASL interpreting for any deaf student that is a student here at BCIT. From every program, from architecture to welding to this program, carpentry.
And this program's to eliminate any barriers for any deaf students, is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So am I hearing
Well, it's a result of my own personal journey. I've been an entrepreneur since 2009, even a little bit before that too. So I was really it was my own journey that I had as an entrepreneur, where I met a lot of other women entrepreneurs, and I saw the struggles that they faced firsthand. I saw the obstacles that they faced. So I was really inspired to make a change and do something for women, and do something about this. I just hated to see women entrepreneurs constantly working in their business, not in their business. And I really was just out there to take women entrepreneur and help them to become very savvy CEOs, just the way that our male counterparts are. So that's sort of how I got started with this. And I must say that I was inspired by, there's a very powerful unicorn CEO in America who does something similar for $1 million CEOs. And I was really inspired by what she was doing. I was really inspired by how she was giving back and teaching others how to create systems and be better CEOs. So I really wanted to bring that back home for us and do something similar, but make it more accessible and not just limit it to $1 million CEOs, and make it accessible to small to medium business size owners as well.
Yeah. That's great that you decided to do that. And can you also tell me what the core mission of SheBiz today is?
The core mission of SheBiz today is really just helping women entrepreneurs to be better CEOs of their companies, which really means to work on their businesses, not in their businesses, to be more accountable, to just grow their companies.
Yeah, perfect. So I know we've all obviously covered what SheBiz is and how it starts and the inspiration behind it. Are you able to tell me how SheBiz helps empower women in businesses and leaderships?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a few different programs that we run right now. We've got a CEO Blueprint, which is small cohorts of learning opportunities where we have, like, through Zoom lessons, live Zoom lessons twice a week. We teach different elements of business. We've got accountability groups as well, where we've got women entrepreneur keeping each other accountable, having a little bit of a support system and a network of other women entrepreneurs that can, that you can talk to and really, like, discuss your issues and your pain points with. We also provide mentorship for women entrepreneurs. So I've got some great women leaders that are willing to give their time and their experiences to women entrepreneurs and help them to just with mentorship. And then the other thing that we provide is our annual CEO boot camp. We did our first annual boot camp this year. We're now working on 2026. And last but not least, I am actively working on getting investors on board so that, and I've got a handful of investors who listen to pitches and do micro investments, or even some of them do larger investments too, based on the pitches. But just really trying to grow that element as a way of also helping out women entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for telling me that. And also the next thing I'm curious about, so in British Columbia, majority ownership businesses have only about 36% of women in senior management positions, and then the 46% in other positions. What do you think that says about the current state about business owners in the province?
You know what? I would say that our province is doing a really good job, because overall, less than 2% women are CEOs of companies. That's a very small number. Less than 2% globally are women CEOs. So if our province is almost at 36%, we're still doing a really good job of senior leadership positions that are held by women. So I would say that, I'm seeing a lot more initiatives being taken by the government. I'm seeing a lot more initiatives taken by other organizations as well, to really help this number grow. There's still a lot of work to be done, and I hope that the global number of 2% CEOs will, in the next generation, the next decade, will definitely be a much higher number. But I think that our province is on good track with increasing that number, and I just hope that we keep doing more programs that help women entrepreneurs and women leaders.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like, the numbers, like, obviously 2% is very low, but in our province, you're absolutely right. And also, in your opinion, what do you think that some of the biggest challenges women still face in the business, like, spaces and entrepreneurship areas?
Well, women still face the challenge of having the same amount of freedom that our male counterparts have, in the sense that we're still the main caretakers in our home. So whether it's having a family, whether it's looking after your children, whether it's looking after your parents, women are still the ones that have that role. So I think one big challenge is to have that support on the family front, on the home front, to be able to really go out there without worrying that their kids are taken care of or not. that's one big challenge that women still face. Finances. A lot of women face a lot of challenges just getting the right investments or access to funding, because a lot of times, like, women entrepreneurs, like, I'll share my own personal experience, where I've reached out for to personal contacts with help with loans, and my women counterparts have not been very helpful. And I don't know if I'm still trying to figure that out. I'm still trying to do more research on this and figure out, is it because we just don't have a lot of assets, which is another problem. Like, women don't own a lot of assets, as many as men do. So funding is an issue, but, like, why are women not lending out more? Why are women not investing more? Is it because they don't have enough access to funding? Is it because they don't have enough assets? That's still a question, but access to funding is a very big challenge. Access to having support at the home front is a big challenge. And, naturally speaking, women have, a lot more health issues than men do, right? Like, I mean, we're out of commission a week out of the month when we are menopausal, or not menopausal, sorry, when we're menstruating. We have natural issues to deal with. We've got periods, we've got menopause, we've got so many other things that we have to deal with, which naturally just kind of slow us down in the month. So a lot of these things, I feel, are still big concerns and big barriers for us. I also feel that there's not enough understanding either. So there's not enough compassion for women entrepreneurs out there, women leaders out there, to allow for them to experience and go through these challenges with ease. People are still frowning upon that. Oh, okay, you've got a child now, you're pregnant. Okay, well, so you're probably not going to come back to work. Well, why not? Mm-hmm. So those kinds of things, I think that are still a bit of a challenge that women continue to face.
Thank you so much for sharing that side of your personal experience. Thank you for joining me today and speaking about empowering women in businesses. This was For the Record. I'm Jenny Sung for BCIT's The Crow.
Thank you, Jenny, and welcome back to For the Record on BCIT's The Crow. I'm Kai Garcia. As the local community continues to mourn and understand the loss of lives due to the tragic Lapu-Lapu incident last April 26, concerns and security for safety of future events loom in their minds. Regarding upcoming events, the Pinoy Festival, a celebration of Filipino culture, will happen next month at the Swan Guard Stadium and Central Park in Burnaby. I spoke with Burnaby City Councilor Maita Santiago, who is the first and only counselor of Filipino heritage in the city. She said she will be there to support the event. We discussed the importance of celebrating culture and holding events like these, and also talked about the role of the Burnaby RCMP in this event, and assured safety for all. And here's our conversation now. Thank you for your time and agreeing to do this interview. Can you tell everyone what your name is and what you do?
Yes, my name is Maita Santiago, and I work as a Burnaby City Councilor.
The recent events of the tragic Lapu-Lapu incident has happened just over a week ago, but you as a Filipino Canadian yourself, how has this affected you?
Yeah. First of all, my sincerest condolences to all of the families who lost loved ones that evening. My heart also goes out to everybody that's still in the hospital trying to recover, and I'm also thinking at this moment of the many, many others, across our cities and the Lower Mainland and across Canada, around the world, who are still deeply affected by the tragedy. As a Filipino Canadian, it hit me really hard. I wasn't at the event, but since then I've spoken to a number of people, as well, that either were there, either earlier in the day or during the time of the incident. And, and again, it's just, it's hard to express into words all of the different emotions that everybody's experiencing and feeling at this moment. But really, it ranges from, and this is what I felt, right, at that night, as well as still, you feel everything from disbelief, shock, deep sorrow, and also, and as well, there's also, some questions, right, about, everything that led up to that evening. Because we're also concerned, for example, in Burnaby, we have a number of outdoor festivals that take place each spring and summer. And we want to make sure that, these events are held as safely as they can be.
You brought up that Burnaby creates or has events similar to one that of the Lapu Lapu incident festival. While it happened in Vancouver, can you say that Burnaby is doing new things like measures or changes to ensure the safety and security of the citizens and for events in the future?
Yes, yeah. For the Burnaby, for the Pinoy Festival, which is coming up on June 14th, I have, since spoken with the Pinoy Festival organizers as well as to our local RCMP. And even before the tragedy, I was also aware that following their event last year, that there were already measures discussed and put in place with regards to safety and security that were going to be above and beyond what's normally required, and that are also things that Pinoy Festival organizers with staff both agreed that they would do, again, to improve safety, right? So these are things, that include everything from hiring additional security personnel to hiring professional traffic control staff, for the parking lots, and all of those things. So, these measures were in place. They were already discussed about, and another thing, because this is the third time that they're doing this festival, I do know that the other 2 years, as well as for this year, the participation of the Burnaby RCMP has also always been there. For example, they've had a booth at the event. 1 year, they had a couple of their RCMP officers even participate, in the Santa Cruzan, in like the procession, wearing their red serge. So, I'm aware that they've always had a close relationship. But of course, following the Lapu Lapu tragedy, I know that organizers had a meeting with Burnaby RCMP, like a few days afterwards. And, and Burnaby RCMP assured them that this would be a safe event. They said, they also described, right, or emphasized how different of a venue Twangard Stadium is from a festival that's held outdoors or on a street. So they mentioned that it has natural barriers, and other things, that are in place that makes it a venue that, can be more easily secured.
Thank you for that. You actually brought up the Pinoy Festival that will be happening next month in Burnaby. It's actually one of the biggest festivals, Pinoy festivals dedicated to culture, Filipino culture. Can you let everyone know what it is, or if you have a role in it?
Yeah, so, again, it's going to be held in Burnaby. So my role is really to support it and the organizers, to do what they need to do, in the same way that we support, all, that we try to support all festivals, right, and celebrations. As a Filipino Canadian, this is one that's really close to my heart. The Pinoy Festival, again, it's the third annual one, and it's an event. It's more than just an event, actually, because it really is a celebration that's led by the community, by the many community organizations that make up the Filipino community across the Lower Mainland. So meaning that they participate in it, they organize some of the event features, and, they really play an integral role, in making it such a successful event year after year because of that, because of how it's led by and how it's been really embraced by the community. and also because of Pinoy Festival, it's sort of like if you, so it's such that you don't even have to go to the Philippines, right, to see and experience the whole breadth and diversity of Filipino culture. Organizers design it so that the festival reflects Filipino culture from the north, from the Cordillera region all the way down to the south to Mindanao. And so this is seen in different cultural dances, performances, in what some of the program participants wear, and also through the booths by the community organizations that will be there. I know it has different features. Again, some of them are led by Pinoy Festival organizers in cooperation with other Filipino groups, and these include things like an art and painting exhibit, and a Divide Beer Barbecue and Music Garden, family fun park, along with the cultural performances, and of course the community parade.
Yeah, you described it beautifully on what could happen during the event this year. However, it brings thousands of people across the Lower Mainland to Burnaby. However, during recent events, there may be people who are a bit hesitant or maybe scared to attend large events now because of what happened. Is there something that you could tell them or reassure them in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, it comes down to, and I keep thinking back to this, a conversation I had with our Burnaby RCMP. And we were discussing, what happened and the understandable, hesitation that some of our community members have. And Burnaby RCMP assured me that it would be a safe event and that they hope people come. I should also note that we had a community meeting just a couple of days ago here in Burnaby, following a community memorial mass. And at that meeting, again, Burnaby RCMP were there, and they shared with the folks that attended, how they were going to be doing everything to make sure it was a safe event, and how, they hoped that people would come out to participate, and to celebrate, right? All things Filipino, in the same way that they hope everybody continues to come out and celebrate other cultural communities, and other events, right? Outdoor events that are held across our city. I should also note, though, that, I understand that there's a provincial commission, that's going to be undertaking a review of what happened. And, there's a criminal investigation underway. City of Vancouver is doing an internal review. So I think, the outcomes of these reviews and how they're done is also important in terms of ensuring that all of us really are able to learn the lessons that we need to, so that moving forward, we're confident that, we can do everything that we need to make sure that these events are safe.
Okay, for the final question, is there anything that you would like to expound on that you previously said, or words that you would like to end on to let our listeners know?
Yeah, I think as a Filipino Canadian who's, lived in the Lower Mainland for the past several decades, I think, I guess something that I hope people also come to realize is just how diverse and broad the Filipino community is, and how we have many Filipino Canadian organizations that really do put in a lot of work day in, day out, to help our community be seen, to help provide services that we need. And, and because of this, these strong organizations that we have in place, because of, the strong spirit, right, that Filipinos, often have, regardless, I'm confident that really moving forward, that we'll continue to come together. And again, hopefully, and because I think that we need to, hopefully that we're able to do these at cultural festivals, at outdoor events, and things like that, especially for the Filipino community, where I know since there's no physical space, right? And even for other cultural immigrant communities, if they don't have a physical center, being able to come together at these cultural festivals are one of those, rare times when they can share their culture, right, with everybody else, in the Lower Mainland, across BC. And so I really, really hope it's something that we can continue to do, because, I feel like it's something that we need to do to keep our communities and our province, vibrant, diverse, welcoming, and inclusive.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Maita Santiago of the City of Burnaby, for your time and speaking on...
The record, following the Lapu Lapu attack, Vancouver has been searching for answers and meaning to understand how such a tragedy could happen in our community. One of the proposed solutions for BC is to ramp up involuntary care, but not everyone is on board. Even while Premier David Eby announced the opening of 10 new beds in Surrey for involuntary treatment, critics have argued that involuntary care has been happening for years in BC and that it has not been affected. Proponents of involuntary care do exist, though. I spoke to Shirley Chan of Pathways Serious Mental Illness Society about her journey getting support for her daughter through involuntary care. Here is our conversation. To start, how did you first get involved with Pathways Serious Mental Illness Society?
I became involved with Pathways Serious Mental Illness Society because my husband and I were struggling with trying to support our daughter, who clearly had serious problems, and we suspected it was mental illness, but we couldn't get any help. Our doctor tried to refer us to psychiatric help, but we couldn't seem to find an ongoing support system for her or for us. And we didn't have a diagnosis, and confidentiality prevented us from learning when she did go to a psychiatrist what the problem might be.
I see. Okay. And eventually, I'm assuming you did find out what was happening with your daughter?
Yes. We learned from a neighbor about the program that Pathways offers, which is called Family to Family. It offers a course where families who support loved ones with a serious mental illness help and educate and support families who are struggling with someone in their lives that have a serious mental illness. We took the course, which was 12 weeks of commitment, one night a week. And in that time, we were able to move from confusion, denial, anger, to understanding, learning to communicate, and eventually advocacy.
Got you. And one of the reasons that I reached out is because following the Lapu Lapu attacks in Vancouver, there's been a really big push for involuntary care. And I noticed that is something that the Pathways Mental Illness Society has advocated for on their website. I'm curious about that experience that you went through with your daughter. Like, how has that influenced your view on that issue?
Okay, my daughter was hospitalized for the first time after she went across the street and smashed a neighbor's window because she believed they were behaving inappropriately and that all the mothers in the neighborhood were asking her to do something. It was delusional. It was psychosis. And she went to hospital with the police, and they kept her for observation for a couple of days, and then she was released and but had received some treatment and released into the care of the early psychosis intervention program. My daughter has been hospitalized a number of times, and each time she received the necessary involuntary care that would stabilize her and allow her to return to the community, which is where she lived. She lived with us in our home. Other times she lived in an apartment that we provided. But of course, the problem is a roof is not enough. You need a lot of care and tertiary care and residential care and long-term hospitalization. And it took us many years to get to the point where she was able to get the long-term in residential treatment she needed to where she's very stable now.
And so for you, the involuntary care, that was a solution, that you felt that helped in your case?
I felt it saved her life. Involuntary care has saved the lives of many of the family members we work with at Pathways who do not know they're sick, because that is one of the symptoms of a serious mental illness and psychosis, is you do not believe you are ill. So you think you're fine and that what's happening around you maybe that is real and that may be threatening you. Your family members may be actually clones. That was what my daughter believed at one point. You see vampires and others around you. It depends on what your psychosis is. You may believe others are trying to harm you or your family. And you do not understand and you lack insight. And when you lack insight into being ill, then there's only involuntary care that can help you achieve a level of stability. And then be able to make decisions for your own safety and well-being. But until you reach stabilization through treatment, you can be fighting the people around you, people trying to help you, your family members who love you. And this is why we at Pathways support involuntary care. We have repeatedly seen that, whether it's with our children, our parents, our siblings, our spouses, that when they are very, very sick and confused and frightened, that involuntary care is the solution.
And so obviously this is a controversial issue right now, and it is getting quite a bit of pushback. There is, as you've said, we're already doing this in BC, and people are still seeing problems on the streets or in the healthcare system. What do you say to people who don't want involuntary care?
We say that, I don't know who doesn't want involuntary care, who, if they're capable of making a decision without being in psychosis, then they should be able to make that decision for themselves and receive voluntary care. But I also know people who go to the hospital trying to seek voluntary care, and they're turned away because there's a view that if you know that you're sick, then you don't need help. And so there's a tendency to discharge because, you see, there's a fundamental lack of beds to treat people on a long-term basis, or even on for a week or 5 or 10 days at the hospital when you are ill. And so without the same number of beds increasing relative to the population that we have, the scarcity of beds makes it really hard for someone wanting voluntary care to be admitted. People go back to their doctors and say, I can't get voluntary care. Please, can you make me involuntary? And then that way they can actually be admitted to hospital and get treatment.
Oh,
so it's not that, I don't believe that in Vancouver that the system is being abused. People receiving involuntary care do need it, and they have been assessed by first for 24-hour hold, and 2 for a longer period of 2 weeks that can be held. They're not held forever. They can appeal. They have a rights advisor. My daughter thought she was fine, and after being in hospital for 2 weeks, she applied to the appeal board to be heard. She managed at that point, because she's smart, to prepare a 10-page PowerPoint presentation saying she could manage her own wellness and medication. She was approved. She left hospital and immediately stopped taking her meds. Now, without judging the tragedy of what happened at Lapu Lapu, we know that often when people go off their meds, they become at risk to themselves first and foremost, and maybe at risk to the people around them. There's true stories of someone who says, I had to kill my mother before I got treatment in the US and in Ontario. So when you do not receive involuntary care when you need it, there's more cognitive damage to your brain, takes longer to heal. And if in Ontario, you can be behind secure, you can be in a secure environment without getting treatment because you've refused it, but you had to be hospitalized because you were deemed behaving strangely on the street. So if you refuse care, you can be kept for 6 or 7 years without treatment. I don't want that for people who are ill. They need treatment, they need timely treatment, and they need it when they're sick. And once they're better, by all means, let them make a choice to leave, let them make a choice to do something else. But please, when they're really ill and can't make a decision, don't let them languish, whether it's behind bars in a psychiatric facility or secure in a psychiatrist or behind bars in a forensic facility.
Great. Thank you very much, Shirley. We're just at time there. I really appreciate your perspective on this.
I hope that was helpful.
It was, and I hope that we can speak again. That was For the Record. Big thanks to all our listeners and guests this week. Be sure to tune in at 10 on Tuesday for more news, sports, and weather. I'm Patrick McConnell, and you're listening to BCIT's The Crow.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretanero.
And I'm Radhika Sikakane. Thank you for tuning in to